Imagine boarding a private jet, expecting the ultimate luxury, only to witness something shocking unfold before your eyes. This story begins with a flight attendant who, in a moment of frustration, crosses a line no one expected. The target? A quiet, elegantly dressed black woman sitting calmly by the window. What the flight attendant didn't know was that this woman wasn't just another passenger. She was the billionaire who owned the plane. As the tension builds, the atmosphere in the cabin shifts from disbelief to silence. Passengers watch nervously, unsure of what will happen next. The woman, composed and unfazed, looks up with an expression that says everything and nothing at all. What happened in that moment left everyone speechless, and the fallout? Well, that's where things get even more surprising. Stick around, because this story will leave you questioning assumptions and the power of quiet confidence. As the cabin remained eerily silent, the woman's calm demeanor seemed to unnerve everyone, especially the flight attendant. There was no yelling, no immediate reaction, just a steady, piercing gaze that seemed to ask a million unspoken questions. The other passengers began whispering among themselves, exchanging confused and curious glances. Who was this woman? Why wasn't she reacting like anyone else might in such a situation? The flight attendant, now visibly flustered, stammered an apology, trying to justify her behavior with excuses about stress and misunderstanding. But something about the woman's quiet composure hinted that this wasn't her first time dealing with someone underestimating her. Meanwhile, the whispers grew louder. "Did you see her arrive? She didn't even look like she belonged on this plane," someone murmured. Little did they know, she wasn't just a guest. This was **** plane, and soon everyone would realize exactly who they were dealing with. The flight attendant's unease grew as the woman's silence stretched on. She shifted nervously, glancing around the cabin for support, but no one stepped in. The other passengers, now fully invested in the unfolding drama, were glued to their seats, waiting to see what would happen. Some whispered theories about who this mysterious woman might be. "She has to be someone important," one person said under their breath. "No one stays that calm unless they're holding all the cards." Meanwhile, the flight attendant's mind raced. She had assumed the woman was just another passenger, but something didn't add up. The quiet authority in the woman's gaze, the effortless elegance of her presence, it all suggested she wasn't someone to be taken lightly. Behind the scenes, the flight crew began to realize the gravity of the situation. A quick glance at the passenger manifest confirmed the shocking truth. But by then, it was already too late. The woman's next move would change everything. The cabin felt like it was holding its breath. The woman finally stood, her movements slow and deliberate, commanding attention without saying a word. Her presence seemed to grow, filling the space with a quiet authority that left the flight attendant frozen in place. The other passengers watched with wide eyes, unsure if they should intervene or stay out of it entirely. The woman took a step forward, her heels clicking softly against the polished floor. The flight crew exchanged nervous glances, realizing they had severely miscalculated. Someone from the back hurried forward, whispering something urgent into the flight attendant's ear. Her face turned pale as she finally understood the magnitude of her mistake. But the woman said nothing. Instead, she reached into her bag and pulled out a sleek, leather-bound portfolio. With a calm precision, she handed it to the flight attendant, who hesitated before opening it. What she saw inside made her gasp audibly. The other passengers craned their necks, trying to catch a glimpse. The woman's gaze remained steady, her expression unreadable. She was giving everyone in the room a chance to understand who she was, before she decided what would happen next. The flight attendant's hands trembled as she held the portfolio, her eyes darting over the documents inside. It wasn't just the ownership papers for the plane, it was a full dossier outlining the woman's vast influence and enterprises. She wasn't just a billionaire. She was a powerhouse in the industry, someone whose name alone could change careers or end them. The realization hit like a thunderbolt, and the attendant's mouth went dry. But just as the weight of her mistake began to sink in, the woman did something no one expected. Instead of escalating the situation, she calmly turned to the rest of the cabin. "It seems there's been a misunderstanding," she said, her voice steady but firm. Her words carried no anger, only an undeniable authority that silenced the whispers instantly. Then, as the passengers watched, another member of the crew stepped forward, a senior manager who had clearly been informed of the situation. His demeanor shifted from professional to panicked as he addressed the woman with an overly formal apology. But his apology faltered when she opened her mouth again, this time to reveal something that took the entire room by surprise. The second twist was about to change everything, leaving even the audience questioning how this would play out. The senior manager's voice cracked as he stammered out another apology, but the woman raised a hand, silencing him mid-sentence. She looked around the cabin, her calm demeanor never wavering. "It's not just about me," she began, her tone commanding but measured. "This is about how we treat people, regardless of who they are or what we assume about them." The flight attendant's face crumpled, realizing this wasn't just a private moment, it was a lesson for everyone on board. The woman's words hung heavy in the air, forcing everyone to reflect. Just as it seemed she might let the situation settle, she turned to the manager. "I assume you've already identified this mistake," she asked pointedly. He nodded, sweating under the pressure. Then came the twist no one saw coming. "Good," she said, her voice softening slightly. "Because I just bought this airline. Effective today." Gasps rippled through the cabin as the passengers exchanged stunned looks. She turned to the flight attendant. "Everyone makes mistakes. It's how we learn from them that matters. You'll have a chance to reflect, but not in this role." With that, she walked back to her seat, leaving the stunned crew and passengers to process what had just happened. The power move was undeniable, but her grace in handling it left an even deeper impact. As the plane descended toward its destination, the cabin was filled with a mix of stunned silence and quiet murmurs. The woman remained in her seat, poised and composed, gazing out the window as if the events of the last hour hadn't just unfolded. The other passengers, now fully aware of who she was, couldn't help but admire the way she had handled everything, with dignity, power, and a surprising measure of forgiveness. The flight attendant, escorted away discreetly, left behind a lesson for everyone watching. Assumptions can be costly, and respect should never depend on appearances. As for the new owner of the airline, her actions spoke louder than any display of wealth or authority. She didn't just demand respect, she earned it. When the plane touched down, the passengers disembarked with a story they'd never forget, each carrying away their own reflection on humility, power, and the strength of quiet confidence.